Welcome everyone. In this video, let's see how can we Dockerize an Express application for development. So I have an basic Express and TypeScript app here. Let me show you my package.json, and you can see it only has Express as its dependency and obviously some dev dependencies like nodemon and tsNodeDev to restart our server every time we save, and we have a script called dev which starts nodemon, which uses nodemon, and it executes the tsNodeDev and index.ts file which runs our server. So let's first run this and let's see how does it look. So I've opened my integrated terminal and type yarn dev. So it's running our server and we can check if it's running. So yes, server is running on port 5000. Let's verify it. Let's do curl localhost 5000. Yes, root route is working. It's perfect. Now let's Dockerize this. Essentially, let's put this application into a Docker container. A small note before starting, this is not a Docker tutorial. I will be using Docker directly, so make sure you know a bit of Docker. If not, just check the description. I have put some awesome videos here on YouTube. You can check them and then you can come back here. So let's start using Docker by creating a Docker file. So I'm going to create a Docker file. It doesn't has any extensions. It's just Docker file and with a capital D. And from here, let's use from node 14. Let's do node 14 Alpine. Alpine is a small version of node, and then let's do work directory as /app, and then let's install our packages inside the container. So run. Before that, first we have to copy our package.json and yarn log file. So let's do that. Copy /package.json and also yarn log file to this work directory /app inside of our Docker container. And then now let's install. So let's run yarn install -- for frozen lock. Frozen lock file basically locks your dependencies to exactly what it is specified in yarn lock. And then let's copy everything else. Copy dot. So essentially what this does is it takes everything from our current directory and places it inside the container inside of work directory, that is /app. But we don't want node modules because we are already installing here. So we actually don't need to copy these node modules into the container. So I am going to create a docker ignore file which Docker sees and ignores whatever is specified in it. So let's create .docker ignore file and let's put node modules in it. Okay, and after we have copied it, then let's start our server. CMD will run whenever our container will start, so it would be yarn dev. So that's it. This is our basic Docker file. So now that we have our Docker file, let's try to build an image from this. So I've opened my integrated terminal and type docker build -t. It's a tag name for our container. Sorry for an image. Just give it any name and dot. Here this last argument, this dot is actually very important. Docker sees it and it knows that it has to search for a Docker file in the current directory by this dot. So let's hit enter and let's see what's gonna happen. As you can see, it's trying to load metadata for node Alpine, which we have specified 14, node 14 Alpine. And then okay, so here's the first step. It went to the Docker hub and got this official Node 14 Alpine image. And then the second is work directory. It set the work directory as /app, and then it copied the package.json and yarn lock, and it's running install, and it has copied the code, and everything is done. So now if it's run successfully, then you can see Docker images. If you type Docker images, you could see your Docker image. You can see this here, Dockerizing Express 14 seconds ago. So we have built an image from this Docker file. But we have our image ready. Let's make a container out of it. So if I just type Docker images, you can see Dockerizing Express. And to run this container, to run this image into and make it a container, we can say Docker run and the name of your image. So let me just copy and paste it. So this very basic form of running, it will not function as we expect. If we will face into some problems, we will see that and we will solve them one by one. So when I run Dockerizing Express, you can see as if everything is working. So if you just open a new terminal, you can see here server is running on port 5000. So I am opening another terminal and I am doing curl localhost 5000, and then you can see there is no response from our server. You can see connection is refused because our container and our host machine are two different things. So we have to do one such thing called as port mapping. So basically it is that the container has a different porting a networking system, and our host machine has a different thing. So in order we have to tell it explicitly that we want a port open into the container. So first let's hit Control C and exit out of this process, and I'm actually hitting Control C, but as you can see it's not getting out of it. That's for a reason. We will tackle that too. But to stop this container in another way, you can say Docker PS and it will show you all the running containers, and then you take the ID of the container and say Docker stop and paste the container, and that's stop now. So first let's do port mapping. For that we have to pass -p flag, and we have to say 5000 and 5000. So this belongs to our machine. The first 5000 before colon belongs to our machine, and 5000 after colon belongs to containers machine. So to get a nice clear overview of this, let's do 5001 and 5000. So 5001 is our local machine and 5000 is under our container. So when I run this now, everything will be just same. But now when I go and say curl 5000, it should fail because we have mapped it for 5001. So this should fail, and it probably is. So it has failed, connection is refused. So now when I do localhost 5001, you can see root route is working. So that's perfectly fine. So we have mapped our ports. And other issue is now if you see, if you come here and hit Control C, it doesn't exit out, but in normal terminal it actually exits. So why it is happening is our input from our host keyboard input is not getting into the container. So again we have to do we have to pass an out and flag to say the container to take the input. So let's see how to do that. First let's stop this container. So Docker stop and the container ID. So this thing got stopped now, as you can see here. Now let's do Docker run -p 5001 and 5000 with a flag called as -it. Let me just zoom in. So let me just clear the terminal. So it's Docker run -it, which is for, you can think it as an interactive. like interacting between our host and container, inputs and outputs. So dash it, then our port mapping, that is 5001 and 5000, and then our image name. Now if you run this, still everything just works same, but now it will accept our keyboard input. So let's first verify if it's actually working. Localhost port 5001, so sorry, 5001, so it's working. Now if I come here and hit Control C, perfect, you can see that it has exited with code some 130. So that's working because of this flag dash it. Our keyboard input is going inside the container. But now we have an yet another problem. Let me show you what. So go and open your index.ts file and change some message. So I'm changing root route is working 2. So just I have appended 2 to the end of the string. And now if I just run my container again, you can see if I go and curl 5001, okay, empty reply, okay, nice. You can see there's no 2 at the end of this string, but I have actually edited my file, so it's not picking up the changes. Also, if you see, the server will not restart if I change anything. So I'm changing my response from 2 to 3 now. You can see nodemon will not restart our server. So you might be thinking we have actually put the dash it flag to pass input from our keyboard and to the container, but this will not work for files. So we have two solutions here. One is pretty obvious one, and another one is which actually is implemented across pretty good websites. So first one is we have to rebuild the our image every time we make some file changes, and second one is using Docker volumes. So rebuilding this thing again and again is not a good thing. So let's see how can we use Docker volumes to achieve this. So let's use Docker volumes. You can actually use Docker volumes from the command line also. Like we have typed here docker run dash it. You can do everything here itself, but there's a good way to run our Docker images using Docker Compose. So I'm going to create a file called docker compose.yaml file in my root directory. So it's docker compose.yml YAML file. So this helps us to run our images in a better way. So let's write our compose file. First is we have to specify a version. So version goes currently, I think 3.8 is latest. I don't know, but that's okay. And Copilot is suggesting me something, but services, next thing is our services. So I'm going to call this as an API. So basically it's an API. Let me just disable this. Okay, it will not disturb us now. So first I'm naming my service as API service. So here will be our node server. So here we will be running our node server. So let's do this. So first is container name. So I'm going to give my container some name. So container is something which we run from an image. So after running an image, it forms a container. If you don't specify an image name for a container, it's gonna give some default name. So but I just like to give it my name, so I'm just gonna call API, nothing much. And next is build, and then we have to say context is dot. So this is the exact dot that we have used to build our Docker file a few moments ago. That's the same thing. Docker Compose also wants to know where our Docker file is. There's no problem if you don't specify this build thing also, but just for completion, or you can say for clarity, I'm just putting it here. So this is just saying that in the current directory, look for this Docker file. If you have some other file like in which you specified Docker configuration, then if something Docker file.dev is your file in which you specify Docker commands, then you can just specify here like Docker file.dev. So it will look for it and build your image. And the next is our port mapping. So this is also important because uh, our container has to let some ports so that our host system can use it. So I'm gonna map the same 5001, oh gosh, 5001 and 5000. And this is a special part that we are going to use, that is volumes. Volumes is essentially like a pointer. If you have ever used C or C++ or I don't know other languages like Go, you know this system called as pointer, that one variable points to stores the address of other variables. So it's essentially pointing it. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the same thing in Docker, which is called as volumes, which you can think of as like pointer. So let me explain what is this. The first dot represents that our current directory, this whole directory, and this column represents we are mapping, same like this port mapping, we are mapping in outside our container to inside our container. So essentially we are mapping everything inside of a container to everything inside of our app. Why app slash app? Because we have set our work directory as slash app. So in this work directory itself, our whole files will be there. So we are using slash app to say reference everything inside of slash app to this current directory. It is like it is like we are copying this whole thing here we are copying this everything over there, but now we are referencing everything inside of slash app except node modules, because we have ignored node modules in our docker ignore. So we can see here docker ignore, we have ignored node modules. So basically we are pointing back again to our this source directory, our directory, which is in our host system, not inside of container. So that is what essence of volumes, which is like pointing back to the again the same source files we are actually writing. So this will also give a problem, but let me just run first and see how we can use Docker Compose. To run this, we have to say just Docker Compose up. Now there are gonna few things gonna happen now. It will take the services, whatever services we have provided. We have provided API service, and it's going to create a brand new image, and it's going to take our folder name and it's going to attach with the service name, and it's going to create a new image from it. So and it's going to run the command that is yarn dev on starting. So let's try to run this. So you can see here it has pulling, it's pulling for the token for Docker registry. It must be now running our first step from the Docker file. Okay, it was very quick. So it went ahead and pulled the node library, work directory, copied the files, run yarn install. It's probably from cache. And you can see server is up. It's not up yet. Okay, it's up now. Service running at port 5000, but we have specified port mapping as port 5001 that we are going to map our host machine. So localhost port 5001 should do the work. So root route is working. So let's do curl localhost port 5001, and yes, we get the output. So everything is working now. But now if I go and open my index.ts file, and I'm going to go and change this to root route is working for, and then I'm gonna go and put curl 5001. Yet again it has failed. So now it has failed because of a specific reason. We are using Docker volumes, it is working perfectly fine. We are mapping our current directory to slash app directory to reference these files. It's fine, it's working. But the problem is that the nodemon is not restarting the server. If you can see here, if I will change this to 4 to 5 and I click save, you can see it's not restarting the server. So we have this, there's a fix for this actually. uh, Open a Docker Compose and we have to pass in an environment variable called Chokidar. Chokidar is actually a library that's used by nodemon to restart, to check for any file changes. So it requires some environment variables to be passed. So pass this environment variable called Chokidar underscore use polling equals true. And now let's run Docker compose up, and it's creating a, okay, process has started, nodemon has started, and server should be started now. It's actually slow. So server is running nice. And if I go into my index file and change this, let's first check the check with curl. So is it running? Yes, it's running. Now I go and change this to 6. So we should be seeing 6. So yes, nodemon has restarted the server, as you can see here just now. So it must be running on port. There must be a message right now. It's actually too slow. I don't know why. So server started. Now let's do, yes, as you can see here, we got updated response. So that's it. This is how you can basically work with Docker and Docker Compose in for development in Express. Sure, there are many things to do. We can do many more services. Like in this Docker Compose, you can add services like Postgres and pull the images of Postgres and Redis or Nginx. We can do many things. We will see some of them in future videos. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do so, then make sure you like and subscribe.